So let's talk about Peter today. Let's talk about Peter. I want to talk about his personality real quick. How many of you guys know the personality of Peter? Peter was a guy full of anger. Anybody know who's angry? No, he's your husband, right? He's like, raise your hand, would you? Okay, so Peter was a man full of anger. He had anger issues. All right, he had anger problems. Peter also was a guy who liked to fight. He liked to throw down a couple of times, okay? It was no big problem for him to square up and have some problems with some people, okay? That's Peter. All right, Peter also spoke his mind way too soon. He was the kind of guy who would say before he thought. You know what I'm saying? Right? He would just, and then, you ever done that before where you say something and you wish you can get it right back? You can just like go with these words like this and then bring them right back into your mouth. Have you ever done that before? Right? Especially when you're saying, hey, how long are you? How long is the baby? You know? You never want to say that about a woman, okay? If they're not pregnant. Because I've done that, been there, and it's not a fun thing. I wish I can take those words back. All right, so Peter spoke his mind. And he spoke his mind, and he spoke probably way too much, okay? Often he did it too soon. And Peter also had all those issues, but he also was a man of passion, right? Peter was also a man of passion. When Peter was in something, he was in something. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Right? There was no halfway with Peter. It was black and white. It was all the way in, or it was none at all. I mean, it was jump feet first, right? Or don't jump at all. Like don't ask him to test the water, because the water that he was going to test was the one he was going to jump in first. All right, that was Peter. That was his makeup. I remember a story one time. A buddy of mine took me to this cliff, and it's about a 30-foot drop, and he said, hey, we're going to go cliff diving, okay? And I thought, or cliff jumping, and I was like, well, all right, cool, let's do this. And I didn't know what to expect, and he's giving me instructions. Okay, so what you want to do? You want to jump right here. You don't want to jump right here. You want to jump over there. And don't forget there's snapping turtles in the mix and all this. And while he's telling me this, I'm like, I just jumped full on. It was awesome. It was awesome. And he's like, dude, why did you do that? You could have seriously hurt yourself. I said, I don't know why, because I'm 21 and I love jumping off things, okay? So that's how it is. And as I think about the life of Peter, and I think about Peter's personality and Peter on who he is, I've got to think about Jesus. I love that Jesus surrounded himself with people that are just like us. Do you hear what I just said? He surrounded himself with people that are like you and me. He surrounded himself with people who are short-tempered. He surrounded himself with people who had issues. He surrounded himself with people who doubted. He surrounded himself with people who didn't have it all together. And I love that about Jesus. I love it so much that to even as much as say that he's not going around looking for the best of the best and the perfect of the perfect. He's looking for you. You hear what I'm saying? Come on, somebody, talk back to me. Right? He's looking for you. That's who he's looking for, all the hang-ups, all the stuff, because we're just like the disciples that he rolled with back in those days. I mean, think about that for a second, right? They didn't have it all together, right? And I'm gonna get there here in just a second, but man, we are just like the people that he surrounded himself with. And even the ones that he called closest, the three that he called closest, I'll get to that too in just a little bit. He said, you guys are my closest buds. And they're just like us. They're hot-tempered, angry, doubted, didn't have a lot of faith. They did all these things. Thank God I get to fit into the mold of a disciple of Christ. Amen? So Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 through 22. I'd like to say that Peter, through his eyes, saw Jesus as his rabbi, as his mentor, as the one who called forth destiny in his life. Matthew chapter 4, 18 says this: Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee. And I'm gonna need you this morning to put on the cinema in your mind, okay? The theatrical mind, if you will, and picture this with me a little bit. So Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee, and he saw two brothers. There was Simon, and his other name was Peter. And there was Andrew, his brother. They were putting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Jesus said to them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And at once they left their nets and they followed him. Isn't that a pretty amazing story? I mean, think about that. Would you do that? Right, you're fixing a tire, right? And all of a sudden, a guy walks up that you've never met before and says, hey, follow me. What are you gonna do? You crazy, man. I don't even know who you are, right? You got that long flowy hair. I don't know if I want to follow you. You get that white robe, you know. No, not really. We don't really know what Jesus looked like. I like to think he looked like me, right? And so here's this guy. He walks up and these men are fishing, right? And he says, drop your nets, come follow me. And immediately they left everything to follow Jesus. And that speaks of something about who Jesus was and how those gentlemen must have saw through their eyes, especially Peter, what they must have seen in Jesus to follow him. So let me just kind of remind you a little bit of what it meant to be a disciple, right? Back in the days, back in those days, in the Jesus days, okay? Let me remind you what it meant and how important that this story really is. You see, during these Jewish times, young boys, when they were old enough, they went through a process to become a rabbi. It was prestigious to be a rabbi, right? It was something that every young boy dreamed of, their family dreamed of, their young men becoming rabbis, right? So they would have to go through a process of things to become a disciple of a rabbi. They would have to memorize the first 5 books of the Bible. Okay, from word to word. Come on, some of us have a hard time remembering John 3:16, right? So here's these boys, right? And we're talking like young boys. We're talking like 8, 9 years old. All right, they're memorizing the first 5 books of the Bible, right? Called the Torah. They're memorizing the Torah, and there they are, right? So if they made it past that cut, then all of a sudden the master rabbi would say, "You've done a good job. Come follow me." Right? They say, you've done a good job. Let's go to the next thing. Let's go to the next phase in this thing called discipleship. And those people who didn't make it, he would tell those young boys and those young men, listen, you did the best that you can do, but you're just not gonna make the cut. So we want you to go about your family trade. We want you to go and work on what your family was working at. And then they would have to go through another rigorous set of tests. They would have to memorize the law, and they would have to follow the law. They would have to be so clinging to the law that they had to just follow it to the T, right? And if they messed up, if the rabbi at that time said, hey, you know, I think you're great, but you're not that great, so we're gonna ask you to go to your family's trade. Then on and on through the process of all, until finally that rabbi then would say, you've got what it takes. I want you to come and follow me, and I will be your mentor. So here's Peter, right? Here's Simon Peter and his brother. What are they doing? They're fishing, right? Yeah? What does that mean? They didn't make the cut to be a rabbi. They weren't the best of the best. They weren't the ones that the other head rabbis and those people would say, you've done it. You've done a good job. Follow me. They were told straight to their face, little 10-year-old boys, 11, 12-year-old boys, and said, sorry, just not gonna cut it. You can't do what I do. You're not gonna make it. It's too much of a yoke to carry. You're not gonna do it. You can't do it. And he would send him off his way. And here's Peter fishing. And here comes this man, Jesus. Come on, think about this for a second. Here comes this man, Jesus. All their lives up until this point, they've always wanted to follow after a rabbi. And here comes Jesus. And he says, hey guys, I believe you can do what I can do. Isn't that awesome? He sees the destiny in their lives. He sees the purpose in their lives. And he says, I don't care about what you couldn't do, how you couldn't measure up, how you couldn't get to the place where you're gonna be the best of the best of the best. It does not matter to me. What I see is you. And here's Peter, all brown-eyed, going, yes, this is my moment. And he drops everything and he follows after his rabbi because that rabbi believed in him that he could do what Jesus was gonna show him that he could do. Come on, that's preaching, right? Here's Peter. I mean, how old are they? Really? I mean, really 15, 20, 21 years old? Right? I know we just watched a video where the guy looked like he was, in his 50s, but really, I mean, how old are these guys? They couldn't have been that old, and they're fishing, right? He says, come follow me. So what happened? Immediately, they dropped their nets and followed Jesus. And what was Peter seeing in this moment? What was Peter? The one who was passionate, the one who had anger issues, the one who spoke too soon and he spoke too often, didn't know what it meant to not really speak his mind. What was he thinking this moment? He was thinking, no one's ever believed in me. Come on. No one's ever believed in me. He thought to himself, matter of fact, I started not to believe in myself any longer. And this rabbi, this Jesus, spoke to my destiny. This is Peter talking. He spoke to my destiny, spoke to what he saw in me that I could not see in myself. Here I am, fishing, rejected. I was left with no purpose, but the King of Kings, came on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose. He came with purpose, and he spoke right into Peter's life. He spoke right into these 12 gentlemen. He spoke right into their life and says, it does not matter if you didn't make it. It doesn't matter if you aspire to be the best of the best. What matters is what I see in you. Well, that's all that matters is what I see in you. And what I see in you is purpose. What I see in you is vision. What I see in you is somebody in about 3.5 years, we're gonna change the world upside down. That's what I see. And he called Peter and he says, come on, Peter, come with me. Let's go change the world. And today, right here on this Palm Sunday,